News reports, in their nature, tend to deal with the negative aspects of our world, which is why we feel disturbed when watching the news. Especially upsetting are stories about murderers, pedophiles, and similarly unspeakable crimes. We occasionally hear these criminals are sentenced to death. However, in Korea, convicted felons are only sentenced. Korea is an abolitionist in practice country and has not executed anyone since 1997. Historically, there have been two clashing viewpoints on capital punishment. Proponents say criminals who commit heinous crimes deserve death. They also say that the death penalty serves as a precaution for criminals and therefore contributes to preventing crimes. Opponents say that there is no actual proof that the existence of the capital punishment serves as a deterrent, and to prevent wrongful execution, it should be abolished. Koreans' views are not different, but the public's call for the use of the death penalty has increased recently as we hear more stories of heinous crimes. The government should do something in response to the public's outrage, but as Korea is an abolitionist in practice country, actually putting someone to death again will be a burden on the government. Should punishment be proportionate to the crime? Or should the right to life be protected for all human beings? It's not an easy question for all of us, let alone the government. Korea has the death penalty, but has not executed anyone in over 10 years. Officially, there is a death sentence in Korea, but has not been exercised since 1997. So I said the death penalty or the death sentence or penalty has not been exercised. So you might think of exercise as going to the gym, running, walking. But when we talk about exercise, we usually do it about something like a law or some way of thinking. For example, you need to exercise good judgment when going into a bad neighborhood. Or you need to exercise caution when going through heavy traffic. It means kind of a way of thinking. Public outcry for the death penalty has increased due to a spike in reports about violent crimes in the media. So I said public outcry. Outcry is when you have a group of people and they don't like something and they start to complain about it. So, there's outcry about murders, or there's outcry about traffic, or there's even outcry about bad food in a certain part of the country. But yeah, it's an outcry as a group of people who are saying something negative. Usually it's very bad. And I said that it increased due to a spike in reports. So a spike is if you're looking at a chart and the chart is there's a line going on it, maybe a stock price or the sales of a company, and you see a sudden quick increase. That is a spike. So a spike is a quick sudden increase in a number of something. And then we talked about violent crimes. So violent crimes ranges from murder, rape, terrorism, assault with a deadly weapon. Usually the worst of the worst crimes are what we call violent crimes. Death penalty advocates have increased along with the rise in media coverage of crimes of violence. So we say death penalty advocates. An advocate is someone who supports something. And at the end I said crimes of violence. It's the same thing as violent crimes. The repercussions for those who have killed should be death. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So that last part I said, an eye for an eye, a tooth from a tooth, comes from Hammurabi's code. It means if someone takes out someone else's eye, your eye should also be removed too. So that was the traditional saying, an eye for an eye, a tooth for tooth. But nowadays we shorten it. We just say an eye for an eye. It just kind of means revenge for something that happened to you. The punishment should fit the crime. Those who are convicted of the most serious violent crimes should be put to death. So at the beginning of this last sentence, I said the punishment should fit the crime. That is the more modern saying. So when judges decide the law or decide the punishment for a criminal, they say the punishment should fit the crime. An eye for an eye is more slang and it's a little bit more outdated. So the current one is the punishment should fit the crime. The death penalty is a human rights abuse. A human's right to live should not be infringed, even if they have taken a life. So when we talk about to infringe on something, it means that if you have a right or there is a law that protects you, if someone's going to infringe on that law, that means they're going to make the law so it doesn't apply to you. So everyone has the right to vote. But if a group of people come along and say, hey, you can't vote, that's infringing on your right to vote. So infringing is like stopping someone who is entitled to something, like a law or a given right by their country. The death penalty does not deter criminals from committing violent crimes. Some innocent people have suffered a miscarriage of justice and were put to death by their governments. So I said the death penalty does not deter criminals. To deter criminals is to have something that stops somebody or gets in their way. So if you have the death penalty, it's saying that even if I know I'm going to die, I'm still going to commit this crime anyway. So it does not stop them. It's not deter them. I guess a more simple way is, if you weighed yourself on the scale and you were 5 kilos overweight, that might deter you from eating cake and cookies the next day. Next, it has been proven that capital punishment does not stop the worst criminals from committing crimes. In addition, some people have been wrongly convicted of serious crimes and have been found not guilty after they were executed. So when we say capital punishment, that's what we're talking about is the death penalty and executions. It's punishment by government. So that meaning hanging, shooting, lethal injection. In the United States, it was the electric chair. And then we talked about wrongly convicted. Wrongly convicted is someone who was put in jail, but they were actually innocent. Previously, I mentioned a miscarriage of justice. So a miscarriage of justice and a wrongly convicted is also the same thing. It's also been known as a travesty of justice, but we most say wrongly convicted or miscarriage of justice when someone innocent has been convicted of a crime. And finally, I'd like to point out found not guilty. So when we talk about legal references, some people say he is innocent or he is not innocent. But the real legal term is he is either guilty or not guilty. Innocent is very relative. So the conviction word is guilty or not guilty. It's never innocent or not innocent. Felons on death row whose cases have been heard and appeals rejected should be put to death. So what I'm saying is felons who are on death row whose cases have been heard. That means their trials have gone through and they've been convicted. And then I said appeals rejected. So if you're found guilty of a crime, you have a chance to have a second chance to have another trial. That is called an appeal. But if your appeal is rejected and you're found guilty again, in the United States, you can keep appealing. You can keep going. But if what this is saying here is if your appeal is rejected, you should be punished and put to death. Criminals who have been convicted without a shadow of a doubt need to be punished for the crimes they have committed. So we have an idiom, without a shadow of a doubt or beyond a shadow of a doubt. You can say it both ways. Both are correct. Without a shadow of a doubt or beyond a shadow of a doubt means that it's absolutely correct. It's 100% sure. So again, without a shadow of a doubt or beyond a shadow of a doubt, it means there's no doubt. It is 100% correct. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.